Jurassic Park 3, the third installment in the Jurassic Park film franchise, first released in 2001. People have said that this is probably the weakest of all the Jurassic Park movies, and yeah, it's not really hard to see why. I mean, there are some parts of it that I felt could have worked, but yeah, I mostly just watched this one just to complete the original Jurassic Park trilogy before they started on World, but yeah, this was a little painful to sit through in places. But anyway, let's get into it. So, the film once again stars Dr. Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill, and while they do show Laura Dern at the beginning as Dr. Ellie Sattler, it's shown that the two of them have broken up in the years since, and she is now married to a man named Mark, played by Taylor Nichols. Which I know a lot of people took issue with because Alan and Ellie, they were a nice couple in the original film. I mean, they worked well together, so people naturally wanted to see them together. But then I don't know if it was just because they couldn't afford to get Laura Dern in for certain parts, or they couldn't figure out what to do with her. But to just have them not get together off screen, it did feel a little much. But anyway, they're now separated, and Alan is approached by a rich couple played by William H. Macy and Tia Leone. And they say at first that they're a rich couple and they want the opportunity to fly over Isla Sorna because they're the type of people who can afford to do anything and they just want to do something special. While he's initially reluctant to return to Isla Sorna due to kind of everything that happened there and no real desire to go back, they eventually offer him a large ton of money that he can use to fund his archaeological dig sites. Which, because he's kind of struggling financially, he agrees to do so. However, when they get there, they find out that the couple aren't actually rich, and they actually want to come to Isla Sorna for a much different reason. Their son, Eric, played by Trevor Morgan, recently was lost there while parasailing with the mother's boyfriend, Ben Hildebrand, played by Mark Herelick. And it is revealed that they're actually divorced and they've mainly come here to try and find their son, to which they're accompanied by a man who works with Dr. Alan Grant, Billy Brennan, played by Alessandro Nivola, as well as two bounty hunter-esque guys named Udesky and Cooper, played by Michael Jeter and John Deal. And they basically have to try and look around the island to try and find their son. Meanwhile, throughout the entire thing, they're being chased by dinosaurs, which include a Spinosaurus, pterodons, a Tyrannosaurus rex, and the Compsognathus. Various ones of them. Now, I will say the one thing that did surprise me about this film was just how short it is. I mean, while with most Jurassic Park films, you expect them to be something like 2 hours long. This one's only an hour and a half long, only 92 minutes, including the credits. I was surprised by that, but anyway, as I said, there were moments that I think could have worked or that I did like somewhat. For example, there's one part where, after going through a lot of danger and action, they end up just on a boat floating past a group of dinosaurs, including Apatosaurus, Stegosaurus, and Ankylosaurus. And I actually do think it's a rather nice moment. I mean, I've seen other reviews from people who said that this moment is kind of like the opening bits in the original Jurassic Park. Just, you need to kind of take in everything, but it's not as good. But I also think after all the action and adventure, just having just one moment, just seeing peaceful dinosaurs up on a riverbank, I honestly thought it was refreshing. I kind of like that. But as I said, there was a lot of stuff that didn't work. For example, there's one particular plot point where the father has a cell phone or a satellite phone that has a really annoying ringtone, but then it proves useful later on as the kid is able to hear it and therefore return to his parents, and it seems all good. And they're like, how do you find us? And like, well, I follow the stupid ringtones. Like, I gave that phone to one of the mercenaries that he got eaten, so... And then it turns out the ringtone is actually coming from the Spinosaurus, which is particularly groan-worthy. Just to see this monstrous thing that's killed off a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and to hear that kind of buzzing ringtone coming from it, it's pretty silly. Like, I'm not going to admit it's silly. As I said, the phone ringtone is a little cheesy. The boat ride, I think, is nice, but then there's a bit towards the end of the film where they once again are confronting the Spinosaurus, and there's a lot of fire involved and a lot of stuff. And then the father seemingly gets injured or dragged under the water, and then the mother and the son are kind of screaming, like, howling in pain and anguish, and the father just pops up and is like, I'm not going anywhere, and they just hug, and it's just like, that was so awkward. I mean, as I said, they were trying to round off a franchise, but to me, I can see why so many people kind of wrote this off as a bad film. Thankfully, we did get Jurassic World later on, which did help kind of rejuvenate the franchise, but this... Also, it's fair to know this wasn't actually directed by Steven Spielberg. It was actually directed by a guy named Joe Johnston. And I'm not going to blame him 100% for this, because, I mean, there are sometimes directors who have managed to make bad films, but then they've somehow managed to make good ones as well. I mean, for example, Joel Schumacher, while he eviscerated the Batman franchise in the 1990s, I'm sure he did a lot of other really good films and in other direction jobs he's done, but this, I'll admit, I mainly watched this just to kind of finish off the original Jurassic Park trilogy, and while I think I said that The Lost World wasn't as good as the first one, but ultimately wasn't bad, this one, this one's pretty bad. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily give it absolute 0, and I think I'd maybe lean towards about 30% of it actually works, but yeah, they need a lot to reboot this from, and you know what, eventually they did, but if you can avoid seeing Jurassic Park 3, yeah. It's difficult because I know this is a franchise beloved by so many people, but this one, I don't know, it just... It's ground-worthy and you don't necessarily know what to say after finishing it, but this was the end of the Jurassic Park franchise for about 10 years before they finally brought it back with Jurassic World. And admittedly, I personally have not seen Fallen Kingdom or Dominion, so I can't ultimately say this is the weakest film of the entire Jurassic Park franchise. But of the original trilogy, I'd certainly say this one comes down the bottom, then maybe The Lost World, and then the original. That's, if you want to watch something truly great, go for the original. So there's my quick thoughts on Jurassic Park 3, and I don't really know how to end this off. But anyway, until next time, see ya.